I know it's obvious at this point, but it's so insane to me that the Sonic franchise is at the high it's currently sitting at least the games. The movies and Sonic's multimedia presence hasn't really slowed down since that first movie released. It's been decent for a while in that department. Though on the video game side, it's been a little more patchy. The whole Sonic Colors Ultimate thing was a bit of a wet blanket, but I had no nostalgia attached to the original game, thus I didn't particularly love the adherence to the 2D sections in that game when looking backwards from the Boost games that came after. If you want some extra clarity, you can watch my video thanks to the card up top, but after that we got Sonic Frontiers, and man, this is my Sonic. This game gets it, dude. From the serious tone to the open world exploration, the combat system, it was one of the best Sonic games I've played since the adventure era. And then it got even better when Sonic Team went back and gave us an entire year of post-launch content. And it seems like everyone else is in agreement, because Sonic Frontiers is one of the best Sonic games to ever release, both critically and financially.
And Sega has seen this too, with them confirming in an investor's call that due to Frontiers' success, Sonic Team will be getting a bigger budget for future projects, which makes me very excited for Frontiers' follow-up. But right now, we have one hell of an appetizer.
At the beginning of 2024, Sega announced the Fearless Year of Shadow, and this has been one of the most successful marketing waves I've ever seen. And in hindsight, this makes me feel bad for Nintendo's Year of Luigi, where they reportedly lost $456 million. That was due to people not buying into the Wii U, not the marketing campaign specifically. It's just funny to think about. For Shadow, however, we haven't had anything too crazy content-wise. It's just been a lot of really great art pieces created by fans and posted on the official page, which is always awesome to see. Terminal Montage was even commissioned to make us something about Shadow the Hedgehog, which was so f***ing perfect.
While grinding, press the X button to accelerate.
No. I cackled out loud when I watched that.
We got to see Keanu Reeves debut as Shadow in the third movie trailer, which I am so excited for. And then most recently, we received Dark Beginnings, a 3-part animation that sets up the beginning of Shadow Generations. The ending was a little sudden, but I totally get why it ends the way it does. It's immediately picked up by the game after all. Rewind for a second though, because this animation was everything I could have ever asked for. I think its most noteworthy plus is the f***ing heat that are the action sequences. Oh, shit. I never thought we would get official material that's Shadow giving a Gizoid straight hands for a solid 10 seconds! But hey, here we are. Every action sequence is incredible. I can't sing its praises enough. And the callbacks to Shadow the Hedgehog made a 10-year-old me nearly shed a tear. My jaw hit the floor seeing this kid getting a load of this big thing, the heavy dog gun robot, oh my god, and then seeing the gun commander actually being cool with Shadow. Ugh! This means everything to a longtime fan of this series. Needless to say, I am so excited for Shadow Generations. Oh, right, there is another game bundled with this side mode. With the way they lean so hard into the Shadow stuff, which is easily the most interesting aspect, it's easy to forget that there's a totally remastered version of the Boost era's best game too. I'm down to go through Generations again, but it's not like I haven't played this game before. I've beaten it countless times, and I couldn't tell you how many fan-made levels I've played in this game. There are so many great ones. It was my biggest question going into this game. Are the mods going to be easily transferred over to the remastered version? Sega did confirm that the old version will remain available to download to keep the fan content alive, but this version will obviously be the definitive version moving forward. And to cover it real quick, I enjoyed what I played. I'll go over the story changes in a minute, but as far as the game goes, it's still Generations. It's still a fantastic Boost game that's now been given some extra shelf life with these Chow that can be found in stages. I'm not sure what they do, I didn't feel the need to collect all of them, but that's there for those who are interested. One thing I didn't love was the drop dash. Well, for classic Sonic, I didn't mind it. It was actually pretty natural. Mania really gave us the coolest 2D Sonic ability. But I don't like this for modern Sonic at all. The way in which it takes no time to charge it up messed me up more than a few times. Instead of holding down the jump button after you've jumped once, you have to hold the button down after the homing attack. But you really don't even hold it down. If you tap the button after the homing attack, Sonic will enter the spin. Meaning that if you're the kind of person who holds the button down after the homing attack, like me, you need to learn how to break that habit. The last phase of the Perfect Chaos fight screwed me a few times because of this, and I hope there's some kind of toggle I missed in the menu because I would want this disabled if possible. And I never really found a good time to use it either, especially when the boost is right there. That's pretty much it though. Everything else is still how I remember it. Maybe Vector's challenge gate was made easier. I remember having the bitchiest time on the original version, but maybe I'm also just getting that much better? I don't know. Only time will tell at this point. But anyway, that's enough Sonic. I'm ready to play the new game. This is Shadow Generations. We pick up where Dark Beginnings left off, with Shadow boarding the space colony Ark. Soon after, the Time Meter can be seen starting his shenanigans from Generations, sucking Shadow in as well. It's not long before Shadow runs into Black Doom. The alien has been plotting his revenge against Shadow for a while now, but thanks to Eggman's use of the Time Eater, this revenge is able to move a bit faster. But it's not entirely known what this revenge is at the moment. So, similar to Sonic's campaign, Shadow will have to speed through locations from his past to uncover this mystery. Along his journey, Shadow will gain access to new abilities courtesy of his Black Arm's DNA, and eventually, he'll be reunited with some very important people from his past. Due to some time travel hoopla, Maria and Gerald have also been trapped in this temporal space. And it's not a projection or some cop-out, no, this is the real Gerald and Maria plucked from a point in time before the gun raid on the Ark.
Black Doom wanted me to make the perfect warrior for him. So these new abilities are all part of his grand design. You two are linked by blood. As you grow in power, so does he. He will either take control of your mind and make you his ultimate weapon, or take over your body and be reborn in you.
Shadow, fed up with Black Doom's trickery, begins to seethe with rage. This is the first time we really see Shadow's anger bubble up to the surface. Well, okay, I guess the first episode of Dark Beginnings has a bit of it, and then there was that goofy shit in the original game's opening, but as far as this game goes, Shadow is cool and collected through most of the runtime. He's dispatching his old enemies like they owe him f***ing money, but I never took this as anger.
You tortured soul, I will end your suffering.
He's just focused, as we've known Shadow to be in the past. The moment when he saves Maria is where I think this starts to turn into anger. He's literally so blinded by rage that he doesn't notice it's her at first. But Maria gives the little guy a pep talk, with him then making peace with the situation. Shadow then swiftly takes Black Doom out once and for all, but with him gone, the temporal anomaly begins to heal.
Without Black Doom's influence, the time anomaly is beginning to heal. We are returning to our own point in time.
I'll stop Rouge. Use Chaos Control. Stop this moment in time.
Shadow? No. I don't want to be frozen in one place in time. Besides, your friends need your help.
But you don't know what's going to happen.
If I'm being honest, this didn't hit me as hard as the ending of Frontiers. Or even the last episode of Dark Beginnings when Shadow is imagining the life he never got to have with Maria. Ooh, that one tugged on the heartstrings. Don't get me wrong though, this is still very touching and I love it a lot. I think the coolest aspect of this game's story is that it gives characters like Gerald, Black Doom, and to a lesser extent Maria, a chance to be better represented. For Black Doom specifically, since Shadow the Hedgehog was his only appearance, he couldn't be separated from that game's truckload of other problems. For all of Shadow the Hedgehog's issues, the Black Arms were not one of them. I have no problem with them existing, and even if this is the last time we see them, I'm happy they finally got the chance to give us a good show. It's interesting to finally get some screen time with Gerald, the mystery of a scientist that we've only heard about up until now. Unfortunately, he and Eggman are never in the same place, so we don't get to see how that would pan out, but I guess that's what the movie's for. I wish we had gotten some sort of resolution for the Gizoid attacking the Ark in episode 1 of the animation, but it was still a cool Sonic battle reference, if only for reference's sake. Speaking of Frontiers though, I guess it's safe to say that we're sticking with this direction, huh? The self-referential, acknowledging all the past stories? We couldn't be sure how much of this was for Frontiers specifically, but now I think we got a pretty clear idea. This game's script was written by Ian Flynn, and I'm sure we Sonic fans will be saying this until the end of time, but I hope this sticks around. The confidence in storytelling does wonders for the game overall and makes you want to pay attention rather than skipping cutscenes. As for the other half of this package's story, so I don't feel the need to cover this in its entirety, but most of, if not all, the dialogue has been changed in Generations. When they get the idea that time travel is afoot, Sonic is quick to mention the time stones from CD. One change I thought was interesting was showing classic Eggman after the Death Egg boss fight, leaving that classic Eggman reveal for right before the Time Eater fight. And I don't know, I think I like the original keeping the mystery more, but I'm not sure if it really adds any value to the package for him to not be shown until the end. I personally don't think it's a big deal. I just think some of the decisions were, I really don't know. The things they chose to change are almost irrelevant. So the rewrites called for re-recordings, obviously. This is where I think we could have learned from the past. A lot of these reads just don't sound as good as their original counterparts.
You're doing great, Sonic!
You mean you're doing great Sonics?
Right. I may never get used to that. You're doing great, Sonic. You mean you're doing great Sonics? Right. I may never get used to that.
The world? I'm going to own the world when I'm finished with Sonic! Wow, will I really get that crazy? We'll see who's crazy after I destroy both Sonics. Forever. So, I'm going to erase that line and reshape it as I see fit! And they call me eccentric. No one will judge us anymore after we've destroyed these Sonics forever.
It was great teaming up with you. Hope you learned a few tricks that'll help you out in the future. I mean, the past. You know what I mean. It was great teaming up with you, or me. Maybe this will fast-track you to learning some new tricks in the future. Wait, I mean, past. Ugh, time travel's a chore.
Even with all that said, again, I don't really think this changes much for the overall story. The new dialogue is fine and I have no actual problems. Except for how they changed the line where Knuckles calls classic Sonic fat, but they kept the animation of him slapping his little belly.
Thanks, Sonic. Now then, tell me, where is the rest of my island?
You ruined the joke! The story, while pretty good in its own right, was not why I was excited for Sonic Generations. So every new Sonic release, excluding Mania, has had this air of mystery around it. Sonic Frontiers, the first footage we saw was not really the best looking. It was only until the Nintendo Switch trailer, I think, that we really saw some promise. Superstars looked okay, but we still weren't really sure. But Shadow, from the jump, we knew, oh yeah, they're cooking on this shit. Shadow Generations keeps the structure of the original Generations for the most part. A stage or two will be available, and after you beat a 3D version for Act 1 and a 2D version for Act 2, you have to complete some challenge gates to get keys which will unlock a boss fight. After beating said boss, a new area in the hub will open up, allowing you to do it all over again. Like I said, nothing new, but what is new are Shadow's abilities. This is easily one of the most mechanically dense Sonic games we've gotten in a while. Every button on the controller does something, if not multiple things. We've got the 3D Sonic basics like a boost, stomping to get back on the ground faster, and of course, the homing attack. You begin the game with Chaos Control. When this gauge at the bottom of the screen fills up, Shadow can stop time. This can help him use hazards as platforms, squeeze out of sticky situations, and lay some hurting on these bosses. Next is Doom Spear. By pressing triangle, he can shoot a projectile that will stun enemies, and by holding it down, he'll acquire up to 5 targets and then let them go at once.
once. Next, my personal favorite, Doom Blast. By holding down square after homing attacking a black arms enemy, Shadow will launch them into the sky. You then pick where they'll go, only for Shadow to smack them in that direction. And then when they've traveled as far as you want, pressing circle will warp Shadow to them to finish them off, as well as take you a significant distance. Next is Doom Surf. This allows Shadow to traverse bodies of water, and if there are any debris in the water, Shadow can use the bumpers to clear them with a spin attack. Next is one that I totally misunderstood on my first playthrough, and that's Doom Morph. By homing attacking these orbs, Shadow will turn into this blob thing. Its main function is to swim across these bodies of icky paint-like goop, but it also has the ability to swing from those orbs, gaining enough momentum to reach higher places. But I didn't find out until later that if you prematurely release the input, the blob will shoot back up the line it's attached to, allowing Morph to gain extra height. After I discovered this, I was no longer a Morph hater, but it also made me realize, man, this ability needed a way better tutorial. And then the final Doom ability are the Doom Wings. This is basically Shadow's super transformation, because to activate it you have to have 50 rings and then press both bumpers. Now Shadow can basically fly. I say basically because he is slightly losing altitude, and if you run out of the boost gauge you'll drop like a bag of bricks. All of these abilities are incredible to use, and they're not one-off either. They're all combined and put to good use long after they're introduced. Let's talk about these stages though. Holy sh**. These are easily the best stages crafted for a boost-era Sonic game, no shot. I did a quick run-through of Sonic Generations Remastered after playing Shadow twice, and while I still love that game a lot, Shadow Generations is the better game, by a landslide. Starting off, we've got the opening on the Ark. This is a great stage that gets you familiar with how Chaos Control works and how Shadow feels, with some nice callbacks to Final Chase from Adventure 2. The second act in particular really got my attention. I was thinking, oh man, if the 2D stages are this good, maybe I was wrong in saying 2D should stay away from modern Sonic. Then we have Bullet Station from Heroes, one of the many instances where this remake stage is better than the original. This one and its challenge gates show off the Doom Spear really well. Next is Kingdom Valley, and I think this is my favorite of the bunch. The level is so open. I feel like there's so much space to explore here. The amount of alternate paths is crazy, and when the end of the stage turned into Sonic's Mach Speed section, I was losing it. Act 2 put Doom Blast to great use. Sending the Black Arms troops into the wind poles activated them, allowing the level to just constantly move forward. Then we have Sunset Heights. Forces is notoriously a boring game. This is not breaking news, but it's appropriate to mention because this rendition of Sunset Heights is what we should have gotten. This stage is so cool! The first thing that I noticed, as weird as it is, were the houses on the side and how these street lamps act as subtle light sources. Both acts of this stage are serious lookers, and Act 2 really cemented the validity of 2D for me. I'm still not crazy about them showing up all the time, but if they're designed how this stage was, then I won't be complaining. Then we have Chaos Island from Frontiers. I'm curious as to how Shadow is remembering the Starfall Island, seeing as how he never went, but I'll leave that to the lore nerds to decide. This stage isn't my favorite, but it's still good. I think it's worth mentioning that it's better than any platforming segment we got in Frontiers. Better than anything on the islands, and better than anything we got in cyberspace, that's for sure. This level can be a bit challenging, but that's kind of what you expect when you're near the end of the game. A lot of the higher paths in the stage are risky to get to or require some serious reflexes. Definitely one that gets better on revisit. And finally, we've got Radical Highway, Black Doom's favorite level, because throughout the course of the game, Black Doom will show up at certain points in the first acts of stages and totally warp the current stage into a twisted version of Radical Highway. These moments are so much fun, they throw a wrench in the whole stage in the best kind of way. But anyway, back to the real Radical Highway. It's a great last level, showcasing Doomwing's potential, but also giving you room to make mistakes with it. It's also the only stage to have fully 3D stages for both Acts 1 and 2. It's quite challenging, but it's better for it. Now, if I wanted to nitpick, I would mention how there's no Shadow the Hedgehog representation. For all of the stages in this game, we don't get a single stage from the original 2005 game remade. I think it could have been a great opportunity, but I would be an asshole to ask for more after being given this feast. We've even got one extra stage coming later down the road featuring Movie Shadow. Oh, I can't wait, it looks so sick. Going back to what I said earlier about this being the most mechanically dense Sonic game in recent memory, I think this goes a long way in holding my engagement. To bring up Forces again, some of those levels could be taken care of by just holding down the boost button, and by contrast, Shadow throws the kitchen sink at you. Sometimes you'll encounter these Black Arms enemies that will send 3 projections at you. If you don't Doom Spear all 3 targets, you take a hit, And then to finish them, you'll have to use Doom Blast, which, by the way, often has instances where alternate paths can be reached by aiming in different directions. These little briefcases with teeth are probably my favorite platforming obstacle. You stun them with a Doom Spear and then homing attack them to spring off their back. You've got to be so fast, and the arc that it carries Shadow is just, oh, it's chef's kiss. I love it. Chaos Control isn't always available. They sometimes psych you out by giving you an obstacle that can be overcome by it, but then a hidden path that requires it in a second. You just have to be good enough to recognize them. All this applies to the boss fights too. In Metal Overlord's fight, you're introduced to the concept of using Doom Surf's spin move to throw debris at metal, and then later they put a spin on this by having some of the objects you need to hit airborne. They haven't exclusively told you that you can use that move in the air yet, but I like that they give you the pieces and then you get to put everything together. And dude, speaking of the boss fights, what did these guys do to Shadow? The way he takes them out is just, he's not defeating them. This is fucking homicide. Black Doom even caught some hands. He was just talking and spelling out his little plan. But then here comes Shadow, who's heard enough. Oh my god. And Mephiles? So cool. On the hard mode version of this fight, you can actually score some extra damage by continuing to mash the attack button instead of holding it down. Then you'll be prompted to counter Mephiles with a Chaos Spear. Then you use Doom Blast and you skip the phase of that fight. That's awesome for a boss fight. It means your skill can be used to flex on the boss. And Shadow doesn't even remember who this clown is, but whoops his ass anyway.
Bye, bitch!
But that leads into probably my favorite thing about this game, the presentation. You can tell where a lot of the budget went. The cinematics in this game are next level. Those transitions where Black Doom takes you to his personal heaven are truly a sight to behold. I just want to play some of my personal favorites if you'll please indulge me.
Yeah, sorry, but that Chaos Emerald and I have a date with a monster.
Well then, it'll be a date to die for.
I also think it's funny how this is obviously the Frontiers model. I prefer those longer quills. They don't look bad, they don't look great either. Frontiers was a huge success for the series though, huh? It sold gangbusters and set a new direction for the series moving forward. But now, it's interesting that we kind of have a marrying of the open zone formula and 3D boost formula. Frontiers was already practically boost formula, I hear ya, but this is different. These levels are designed around the boost. Cyberspace was not. It's obvious that Shadow is built off of Sonic's moveset from Frontiers in this game. The way that the double jump feels is a dead giveaway, and with that comes far better precise control for grabbing collectibles. In this hub world, there are lots of extra secrets to find. By collecting gears and stages, you can find chests that unlock art and music for your collection room. These are always so cool to see. I get a little grin every time I see something that I recognize, which is most things, so yeah, I smiled a lot. Whatever, this is a stupid tangent. And then there are the bolts. So before you head into Bullet Station, Orbot and Cubot tell you they're making a rocket ship to leave the White Void. Only problem is, they're missing parts. Thus, as Shadow explores the Void, he can find these screws and bolts. I thought I would get another cool cinematic for collecting all these, but it's just a huge joke. Turns out, they were just building a clock. It's not all bad as you get some more concept art, but I guess other collectathons have just trained me to expect more. At least the music is decent. Well, if I'm being honest, the OST is kind of hit or miss for me. The Sunset Heights track in particular benefits from the drum samples this game uses. Original Sunset Heights was one of those tracks that I've never really hated, but this new arrangement is just a flat upgrade for me. I can take or leave both Rail Canyon tracks. Kingdom Valley has 2 great remixes, but Chaos Island is just... I have no idea what they were thinking on this one. I didn't like either of them. The crown jewels were the remixes of It Doesn't Matter from Sonic Adventure 1 and Supporting Me from Adventure 2. The bridge section is enough for my breakdown loving ass to stop whatever I'm doing and just vibe. All of this is highly subjective, obviously it should go without saying, but I'm just not as into the electronic music. I'm personally into the more metal sounding stuff, but that's not to say I hate the other tracks. To mention again, I love the remix for both Kingdom Valley stages. So yeah, I like most of the stuff we have, but I'll have to continue to listen to them to see where they rank in my Sonic OST totem pole. At the end of my video on the Final Horizon update, I said that I hope Sonic Team would listen to feedback and then come back to us with a Sonic game that's not only good, but inarguably great. And I think my wish kinda came true. I know I'm screaming into a stadium who are all chanting the same thing right now, but it feels good to say. We've been burned in the past when Sega says they've learned from their mistakes. But this makes me extremely hopeful that we're done with that era. I'm more curious about the next game now than ever personally. I assume we're going to be going back to the Frontiers formula somehow, but will it resemble this more than Frontiers? It remains to be seen. The biggest thing is though, I hope they keep that mechanical depth and do for Sonic what they did for Shadow. Frontiers' combat system was a great start, but I want to see Sonic crank it up in combat and platforming. Because right now, his cousin is showing him up. Only time will tell. As for me, next time we meet, I will be jumping into Ultra Age, an indie action game that has been in my backlog for a while now. But if you liked what you saw, I encourage you to check the descriptions for links to my brand new community Discord server where we talk about any manner of things. And we will also be hosting community game nights in the future. If you're interested, you can also take a look at my Patreon where you can gain higher rewards like playing games with me for reviews, a shout out in the credits, or you can find this video completely uncensored and ad-free. It would mean a lot to me if you just went by and gave it a look. But anyway, I appreciate you for watching. So thanks for stopping by and have a great day.